Welcome to the fourth program on this year's celebration of Yom Kipurym, the Day of Reconciliations. Today it is October 2nd. We're just shy of 4:50 in the afternoon here in the midst of the Caribbean Sea, which means that the sun will be setting on this celebration in a little over an hour's time. And over that time, we hope to bring you from outside in and then from inside out. And we hope to be able to conclude this program with us doing something that Yahweh expressly requested of us, which is to walk towards the presence of the fiery light to approach Yahweh. Yes, indeed, we have a little mini bonfire all ready to go outside, and we hope to be able to walk out at the end of this program and enjoy it, and you be able to enjoy it with us. Now, where we left off in our last program was really something extraordinary. God said, and any soul, every soul, who by association continually attempts to perform any part of the work, any aspect of the work, reassigns anything associated with accomplishing the service, engaging to do, to profit from, the endeavors over the whole chasm of time, was written in the imperfect, of the Malakah, the spiritual counselor and messenger during this life-sustaining and essential day. That specific and individual soul, God says, I will eliminate, such that that soul ceases to exist from being among the family or being even around the family or striving against the community of living souls. Leviticus 23:30. Now, the reason this is so interesting is that God most certainly did not say work. So if you look at Asha is the primary Hebrew word for doing something, for working, for performing, for engaging, is Asha. And Malakah follows it, which means it is not that anyone who works work, as so many would like to say, or they change it to ordinary work, even though there is absolutely nothing ordinary about a Malakah. It is therefore a title. And that title is clearly based upon Malak. Malak describes Yahweh's heavenly messengers, the envoys from God himself, those who serve Yahweh in our dimensional realm. Malakah is simply the feminine of them. Now, that doesn't mean the Malakah, which is, by the way, written here as singular, doesn't mean this Malakah is a girl any more than the Adam of Parah is a heifer. It simply means that Yahweh has chosen to distinguish this variation of Malak on this day in this way to point out something that is profoundly important. And that is that the Malakah is called Malakah because there is one person who is assigned to do this work on this day. And that is the man who is infused with the seven spirits of Yahowah. And Ruach is a feminine noun. And since the distinguishing aspect of the Choder, of the Nakri, of Dowd's herald, of the lesser luminary, of the final Zeroah, is the fact that he is the only person in human history as the Choder to be empowered and enabled by the seven spirits of Yah, and that Ruach is a feminine noun, and every one of the attributes delivered by the Spirit is listed in the feminine form. Many years, from 1447 BCE to 750-ish BCE, 7 centuries after Yahweh made this declaration, he explained exactly who his Malakah would be, communicating through Yashayah in the 7th chapter. And 300 years prior to that, he had Dowd, his beloved son, write about this in the 14th Mashal proverb, introducing the concept of the choder who would be empowered by the Spirit of Yahowah. So it says that anyone who attempts for any reason, by any association, to perform any part of the work of the Malakah, this spiritual messenger, during the life-sustaining and essential, the stem, day that is Yom Kipurym, that specific individual soul, God says, I will eliminate such that it ceases to exist from being around the family or striving against the community of souls. So this is clearly a decree, not just against religion, certainly not against work, but against the endeavors of a single individual, the Malakah. And today, that role is so important to God. He's saying that if you get in the Malakah's way, you are estranged from the family. No covenant, no Shabuah harvest, no Towrah ingathering, no final remnant of Yisra'el or of Goyim. You're done. It's over for you. You've pushed it beyond what is acceptable. God is viewing a challenge to the Malakah as he viewed Miriam and Aaron's challenge to Moshe when they said, we too speak for God. And God says, no, you don't. I tell you, and I decide who speaks for me. And so you have here a similar situation. God took Miriam, which means embittered and revolting, and he separated her from the community. He struck her with leprosy. He said, it's as if your father spit in your face. Father spit in your face, of course, is interesting because the first group to do this formed a mother goddess cult. So they didn't like, I guess, the paternal nature of Yahweh, and they turned Yahweh into mommy. And these women, God is saying it's as if your father, Yahweh, spit in your face. So it's the same story. I must tell you, and I think it is worth at least introducing here is a introduction to a show that we'll do tomorrow. We did have another woman who has left the covenant family, has gone over to this mother goddess cult, who attempted to do the same thing that the mother goddess cult did. Same thing Miriam did, to demean and attack my wife. And she wasn't very thoughtful in the way that she went about it. And I think you're going to find it highly entertaining. I mean, both enlightening, entertaining, enriching to actually hear, properly translated, the statement that she tried to use as the word of the day to oppose my wife and to oppose Yahweh's teaching in these matters, and what it says immediately thereafter. And what you're really going to enjoy is what Dowd did, as it's recorded in the 6th chapter of Samuel, which may now be my all-time favorite. It is, well, it's exceedingly entertaining and so enormously prophetic of this moment. I think you want to turn in for that. We'll do that program tomorrow. So the fact is that God is saying His Malakah is essential. The realization is, and we just have to grasp the importance of this. God is returning in 8 years. He's returning with Dowd. And if you were to go back 2,500 years ago until the time that Yahweh introduced himself and we began to work together, there isn't a single soul on this planet that knew Yahweh's name. And that's essential to enjoy the day of reconciliations. There wasn't a single person on this planet that knew that Dowd was the returning Messiah and King. And that is what this day is all about. And so that is essential, making this Malakah's work exceedingly important. There wasn't a single soul on this planet that knew that Dowd served as the Savior and that he fulfilled Pesach, Matsah, and Bikuwrym, completely negating any possibility that there was a Jesus Christ or a Christian religion that has anything to do with God, that it was anything more than identity theft and a crude counterfeit. And that our gratitude has to be directed towards Dowd for what he achieved. No one knew that. And if you don't know that, then this day is out of reach to you. And so it is like so much that God has to say. If it wasn't for our collaboration together, there wouldn't be a single soul on the planet even who knew what time it is. The rabbis are off by 197 years. They wouldn't know how close we are to the Shavuot harvest, of which there would be no one participating, or the Towrah ingathering, of which no one would have known anything about, or the sacrifice of the animal parah and how essential that is to the restoration, the purging of Israelites, and even Goyim, so that they can return to the garden of great joy. So all of this is really essential. Oh, I'm saying, speaking of essential, that is a very elegant ride there. And I think I just need to take a quick moment to tell you about that exceedingly elegant ride. That is the Wookiemobile. It is a miniature Mercedes-Benz classic era. Leia had me get it for Wookiee in anticipation that Wookiee would have a girlfriend and that we could film when Beth arrives. And it's Shannon that is bringing Wookiee's girlfriend. Her name will be Kara. And she is just a sweetheart. And so Leia has been setting this whole thing up for quite some time. And so I ordered this car stateside. It just arrived by ship. And it is remote control, complete control. Wookiee can ride in it, and I can control it remotely. And the idea is that Kara is going to sit there beside him. We're going to drive it around. We're going to film it with one of the gimbal held cameras. And then once we have all of that, we're going to use the new AI that has talking dogs. And we're going to have Wookiee and Kara bring a program to you. So this is what Leia has schemed for some time. That is what that car is all about. It's why it sits out there by the pool deck. That is Wookiee's territory to ride it. He thinks it is just grand. So I think Wookiee is taking a nap right now and is thrown below my feet here. But that's the intent. I'm sorry. I caught it out of the corner of my eye, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. But to finish the thought on the Malakah, the reason this is such a big deal, the reason that Yahweh has so many mentions of an individual known as Yada, who would come to know these things, that he calls him his choder, introduced by Dowd and then reinforced by Yahshua, that he refers to him as the Nakri, called as such by both Solomon at the original Sermon on the Mount, and then by Yahshua throughout his prophecy, called the Bashar, the herald of Dowd, introduced in the first time in the Torah as the lesser luminary, as the one who is responsible for reflecting the greater luminary's light as a sign for these moed, these restoring witnesses to the eternal testimony in the fourth day of creation. He is also in the Torah, he is my Dowd, serving El Dowd. He is the salesman later as we survey the names that are presented in the listing of the spies that go into the land that actually is responsible for salvaging Dowd's reputation at the end. He is everywhere. He is the final Zeroah. He is the cold voice of Yahweh. There are so many hundreds of references to him. I have lost track if there's 50 or 75. Well, there's the Wook doing his ride going backwards in the car. Leah does not know that she has it now behind the column and that it can't be seen. But nevertheless, this is what you have when you have a live stream program. But there are so many aspects of all of this that Yahweh wanted his people to know for certain that he had chosen someone and that he had equipped them with the 7 spirits of Yahweh to deliver this message, because the consequence of it not being delivered was the destruction of the planet. It was the end of everything. It really is that significant. Had Yahweh not collaborated in this way, choosing this goy to deliver this message, no one would have been prepared for his return. And as such, God would have no one to return to. Dowd would have no one to have as family in his kingdom. And therefore, it would all be for naught. There would be no red heifer. There would be no Shavuot, no Towrah, no Kipurym, no return to Sukkah. So there's a lot riding on this, and that's why he calls this individual out as the Malakah and said, don't interfere with him. Now, that's a serious warning, because there is a cult, a mother cult, that is devoted to doing that very thing. And every place we turn around, every place we search, including where I'm going to take you tomorrow, it warns them sternly and saying that the consequence of doing that is devastating. It is eternal separation from the family of God. Now, of course, if we turn to Judaism, there is no consensus on the mortality of a soul. Although God is not confused, and he tells us that most souls simply die at the end of their mortal existence. Despite what Yahweh conveys, rabbis do not accept the idea of Sheol, other than there are some rabbis now that recognize, well, there's so many references to Sheol, we need to incorporate it into the religion. So they call Sheol the buff-up place. It's the place where, all souls go so they can be, buffed and cleaned and prepared so they can go to Shamayim. But it's just kind of, they made it sort of like purgatory in Roman Catholicism, where that was the Babylonian concept of you go into a halfway house and you get scrubbed up in the halfway house so that you can, go into the main digs later on. That's kind of how the rabbis are presenting Sheol this day. But for them, they actually say, I've got recording on the Facebook site that says that, punishment is such a bad word. It really doesn't mean that. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry it does. It's a consequence for leading people astray, and rabbis are going to endure it. But nevertheless, they are not buying into it. But they don't buy into anything that Yahweh has to say, so what's the difference? Similarly, there is no consensus on salvation in Judaism either, or heaven with rabbis. Many just seek redemption and righteousness here on earth. To be a righteous person is the goal in itself. Of course, they're really nothing but parasites, studying the words of other rabbis and other men, and they view that as righteousness, when in fact they are hideously ugly. To Yahweh, I see them the same way. So to explain their miserable lives, they claim that their G-D deliberately punishes the most righteous of them, so that by comparison, whoever follows them will seem better. I kid you not. The Hashem of Judaism is as perverted as are the rabbis. Now, we have previously in other programs spoken of the Malakah and the nature of this spiritual counselor, and we realize that this title is, of course, derived from Malak, which means spiritual messenger and heavenly envoy. This known, the Ruach of Yahweh, is the basis of what makes this particular spiritual messenger unique, and that the 7 spirits of Yahweh are upon him. Abad, which was rendered I will eliminate such that it ceases to exist, is the best possible outcome for anyone who would contravene the work of the Malakah. And there are many places where it does seem to say that all but the most egregious of the deceivers who work against the Malakah or Yahweh's Towrah will simply cease to exist. They will not endure Sheol. But those who lead such people astray, now they're going to be responsible for those that they have duped. And so the leaders of the cult will in fact go to Sheol. So with Abad conveying, I will exterminate and wipe away, causing to perish, annihilate, and destroy, it reinforces everything that Yahweh revealed in previous statements using Karath, eliminated or separated. God has put us on notice that a religious soul is a squandered soul. A conspiratorial soul is a squandered soul, and they have no value. It will either be taken away or disappear, be driven from mortality to such that it is also separated and becomes immortal but estranged. This is not a good option. Now, also reinforced were the conclusions regarding earlier He, which is its family, along with the community and kinship of living souls. At the conclusion of Kara 23:29, this realization was further advanced in Kara 23:30 with Min Karaba Ki, from being around the family and away from striving against the community of living souls. God does not want his children exposed to religion or conspiracy or any cult that misrepresents who he is and what he is offering. So during our review of Hoshea's prophecies regarding Yisra'el and Yehudah, and we actually end up devoting an entire chapter to the realization that there are three unique and vastly different outcomes awaiting for human souls. This is where we were able to first deduce that, 24 years ago now is when I came to realize that was true. And first person ever. Never in human history has anybody come to the conclusion that the religious notion in Christianity and Islam, some forms of Judaism as well, that this notion that all souls go to either heaven or hell is absolutely false. And it needs to be proven false, because a God who would say, love me and obey me, or I will torture you forever in hell, isn't worth obeying, and most certainly isn't lovable. And so it is one of the reasons that agnostics stay agnostic, is they know that that proposition is ludicrous. Come to find out that that's not God's proposition. God's proposition is, if you lead people away from me, you abuse my people, then there will be a consequence. And that consequence is eternal separation of your soul. I'm not going to torture it, not going to burn it, no fires down there, just eternal separation. Anguish enough. He then says that if you are among the misled, you just didn't take the time, you didn't get to know me. I gave you life, I gave you choice, free will. I gave an assignment to think these things through, but you didn't use them, and you didn't know where to turn for answers. You just never considered what I had to share. Then you're not cheated at all. You get your life, you get to live it, you get to make your own choices, and at the end of your life, your soul simply ceases to exist. No penalty, no reward. And that's for the vast majority of human souls. And then for those who accept Yahweh's terms and conditions of his covenant relationship and who attend the Moed Mikre as God laid them out, then they get to live with him forevermore as his sons and daughters as part of the covenant family. So that is the story that God tells. And I have provided absolute proof to confirm that this is true, that some souls live forever with Yahweh and Shamayim. Some souls will endure an eternity in Sheol with Satan, incarcerated within a black hole. But most souls will follow man's artificial and unreliable, albeit very popular paths to their dissolution, which remains the primary outcome depicted under these statements. Now, according to the Torah teaching and hundreds more like it, the fate of a soul is determined based upon whether a person has listened to Yahweh accepted his name, responded appropriately, knows his beloved son, and whether understands whether this was all played out as God has articulated. You accept that Dowd came in his second of three lives, and he fulfilled Pesach, Matsah, and Bikuwrym, and you capitalize on these things, which provide life, perfection, and adoption into the family. But if you ignore these 7 summons to meet with God and you try to save yourself, you're going to find death, the end of your life. No big deal. It's a fair, reasonable thing to have occurred. But those now who deceive, those who corrupt Yahweh's messages, we had another one did a crash and burn here today, that those individuals, well, they get to spend eternity with like-minded souls. And that is the choice that they made. They did so knowingly. They did so purposefully. It wasn't an accident. They deserve their fate. And they've been belligerent about it. No one's going to cry a tear for them. Rabbinical thought on life is all confused, whether it's in heaven or hell, and it's just hopelessly muddled. To their credit, rabbis associate their Talmudic olam haba in the forever errantly as the world to come. With a return to Gan Eden, the garden of great joy, well, that part is true, but it's not part of forever. The return to the garden is for 1,000 years. After that, we have much more stately digs to enjoy the entire universe, and of course, in the 7th dimension, even Shamayim. So the thought that a soul exists in a disembodied state until the time of bodily resurrection in the days of the Messiah permeate Judaism. It is all nonsense. There is no bodily resurrection. It is utterly and biologically absurd and totally and completely counterproductive. And the days of the Messiah began 3,000 years ago. They still exist to this moment. He is in charge. He is in Shamayim. He came 2,000 years ago, and he's going to return 8 years from now. The best Talmudic story I could find in which the world to come appears to refer to an afterlife tells of Rabbi Joseph and the son of Rabbi Joshua ben Levi, who dies and returns and comes back to life. His father asked him, "What did you see?" He replied, "I beheld a world, the reverse of this one. Those who are on top there were below here, and vice versa." He, Joshua ben Levi, said to him, "My son, you have seen a corrected world." Talmud Balevi, Pashim 50a. Well, you're in really trouble there, Rabbi. You ought to think that one through, because, you know, you're the head of the Haredim and of the religious community, and you play leading roles in the government. So you're way up here. God sees you way down here, but you're way up here, and therefore, in your eternal world, whoop, guess what? You're exactly as God sees you, at the bottom of the heap. But rabbis aren't all that smart. So, well, this is not particularly clear, nor is it credible, but at the very least, that's the best I could find. All of the tedium involved in Hasidic Judaism hardly seems worth the effort. Since our decision to accept, reject, or ignore Yahweh's invitation to reconcile our relationship is life or death, acceptance or expulsion, Yahweh decided that warning us twice was, well, not enough. Therefore, he reemphasizes this cause and consequence because, well, it's important that we perceive what he has to say. Now, I'm often accused of repeating myself, and I do a lot. And the reason is that I realize that Yahweh is correct. The best way to teach anyone something that they remember, that they transfer from short-term to long-term memory, and they can process and eventually come to understand, is to tell them what you're going to tell them. Then tell them what you told them. Do not consistently or habitually attempt to perform the work pertaining to anything associated with the Malakah, the spiritual counselor, messenger. This is an eternal and everlasting, clearly communicated and inscribed prescription for living. throughout your generations in every situation and dwelling place. Well, there is an escape clause, an exception should you be looking for one, with lo asha written in the imperfect. All one has to do is stop. I suspect there is even hope, if they weren't so belligerent, for the rebellious mother goddess cult members. But they would have to stop. They would have to admit that what they did was hideously wrong, and then come back and be exposed to proper teaching. I don't think that's likely to happen. When you look at the history of the embittered and rebellious, they never return. They dig themselves in. They have told stories and lies to one another to the point that they reinforce one another, and it just doesn't happen. That's why this is one of the toughest jobs in the world, because Yahweh began with the children of Yisra'el 4,000 years ago and has not had very good luck with them. The most horrible experience was during the Exodus, where God actually came down, spoke to them directly, and they told God to shut up and go away. They never wanted to hear from him or see him again. It's not only written once; it's written twice in the Torah. It's impossible to miss, and it gets worse, much worse from there. So this is not a pleasant story. God couldn't stand you. You didn't like him either. Yes, you're the chosen people, but you haven't chosen him in return. And he has, in effect, given up on you. He will return to you, but he will not return to you until you return to him. And that's the role that he's asked me to play. That is the role of the Malakah, is to get your attention, particularly on this day. You call it the holiest day of the year. It's not holy. Choli is diseased. And the fact of the matter is, you've got no clue what the day represents. You're not prepared for the family reunion, for the return of Yahweh. You don't even say his name. You erased his name from your lives. You have no clue that Dowd is the Messiah and that he is returning as king. You've got no clue that we are returning to the Gan Eden. You have no idea what the conditions are of the covenant. You have no perception of what's going to happen with the red heifer, this Adamah Parah on Towrah, to make it possible for a mortal remnant of Yisra'el to enter into this relationship and experience the homecoming. You had no idea what's coming down the pike just 8 months from now with the start of the time of Israel's troubles. All of this is going to come as such a shock to you. But it's important that I tell you so that some of you will pay attention. I don't know what we're looking for of the 7.2 million Jews in Yisra'el. We think 72 would be a nice number. 72 of you who come to embrace Yahweh, come to appreciate what their Messiah and King has done, Dowd, and who return to the covenant through the conditions that Yahweh has delineated, and they begin to attend Yahweh's 7 Moed Mikre as they were prescribed. That would be a lovely start. So this summons to appear before the Malakah on this day for every Israelite, and coming before this fire on this day, which is something we hope to be able to replicate and show symbolically, in fact, and very tangibly here at the end of our program. It's true for every Israelite, every Goy as well, that wants to participate in the covenant, every location, situation, and time. And since an affinity with Yisra'el, individuals who engage and endure with God, is required of Goyim, should they want to share these same benefits, these instructions apply to everyone. Yahweh's Torah directions endure forever, and they are applicable in every situation and time. So what, may I ask, is the purpose, therefore, of a Mishnah Torah, of a Talmud, of a Zohar, of a New Testament, of a church canon, or even, God forbid, a Quran, a Book of Mormon? Are you looking for comedic relief? Are you looking for how stupid can stupid actually be? I mean, the texts of those books are so obviously counter to God and to God's testimony. it is exceedingly easy to disprove them. They are filled with contradictions and rational fallacies. Why would anyone give them any heed when they're so obviously inconsistent with Yahweh and his Torah instructions? Better question yet, I said, is with this inscribed prescription for living as to what God has asked us to do and told us not to do on this day, and it enduring throughout time to reconcile the existing covenant relationship so that Yahweh can return to a mortal remnant of Yisra'el and take us into the garden of great joy on Sukkah. And what is the purpose of Judaism? Just leads people away from God. It's just another control and money-making scheme. What's the purpose of Christianity? It's all based on a lie that Jews somehow lost their inheritance from God and that Christians were entitled to steal their Messiah, their God, and their inheritance. What do you think God has to say about that? Hell no. Or, of course, Islam, which is dumber than dumb. What is the value other than to immortalize the likes of Akiba, Paul, and Muhammad? Demon-possessed, all of them. Now, with this in mind, let's pause here for a moment and consider what has just been said, especially in light of the religious instruction regarding the affliction of one's soul on this day. The Bereth and the Mikre, as well as the Torah, the Nabiim, and the Mizmor, all convey the essential realization that Yahweh allowed his beloved Son to be abused so that our souls would not be similarly affected. He allowed his soul to be bludgeoned by the Romans, I would call that affliction, and to be demeaned to the point that he went into Sheol, hell, carrying our guilt so that we could be perfected. He did this for us so that we could enjoy the day of reconciliations, this family reunion, the great homecoming celebration. This is his message. It was his son's sacrifice that was offered to us as a gift. And since we can't add to it or improve on it, prudence encourages us to accept it. But there brings us right back to the Malakah again. Without the Malakah, you don't know anything about it. You can't accept that which you don't know. As was the case with the harvest, the Lakat gleaning of the day of the herald of Towrah, Yom Kipurym is a special Shabbat. It's a time for us to calibrate our relationship with Yahweh. It is a day set apart to capitalize upon God's offer of reconciliation. This being true, when we celebrate the year 6000 fulfillment of Towrah, Kipurym, and Sukkah, they will all be Shabbats. And that's hard because there are very few years that the Towrah and Sukkah are Shabbats, even though Kipurym technically is always a Shabbat. But Towrah is the gleaning is celebrated on a Friday evening after sunset. The sacrifice of the red heifer, which is the greatest show on earth, we celebrated on that Saturday morning. So both events on a Shabbat, the 23rd and 24th September 2033. Kipurym, by very definition from Yahweh's perspective, is treated like a Shabbat, a Shabbaton, all things related to the Shabbat. And on Sukkah, we begin the first day of Sukkah on the 7th of October of 2033 on a Shabbat. So it is for you a Shabbaton, an empowering and enriching expression of everything associated with the promise of seven. A special set-apart day to revel in and reflect upon the meaning of the Shabbat and how during it we are enriched and empowered. May I ask you a question for those who prefer do nothing day? Isn't Shabbat a verb? Aren't verbs actionable? Let me take you a little different path. Are you familiar with the day of the week that Dowd, with Yahweh's help and the support of his Ruach, fulfilled the single most important event in human history, which is the fulfillment of Matsah, when he took all of our guilt and carried all of it on his soul, lots of work, and went so far more than the limited number of steps that the rabbis established, all the way to the black hole of Sheol, to deposit all of that there so that we could be perfected. In 33 CE, year 4000 Yah, when Dowd fulfilled all of that work, what day of the week do you think it was? Yeah, it was the Shabbat. What about the next fulfillment of a Moed Mikre? Shabuah. That one actually named after the same word, promise of 7. There's 2 iterations of it. One that begins the time of Yaakov's trouble, the other one that designates the Katsir, this great harvest of the Shabbat of Sukkah. What day is the 22nd of May of 2026 when the terrible ordeal of the time of Israel's troubles begins? I'll look it up. Got a calendar handy? Oh, it's a Shabbat, isn't it? How about the harvest when God's going to bring his covenant family home, doing lots of work in 2027, the 11th of June? Want to look that one up too? Oh, son of a gun. It's a Shabbat. Blow the shofar. Make some noise. Oh, how about Towrah? Well, I already told you about Towrah. I gave it away, didn't I? Towrah, at the end of the time of Yaakov's troubles in 2033, year 6000 Yah, it's fulfilled in 2 stages, both on a Shabbat. And Yom Kipurym is a Shabbaton, which means it is a Shabbat no matter what day of the week it falls. And then when we get to Sukkah, on the 15th day of the month, we have a full lunar eclipse to be a perfect bookend to the full solar eclipse on Towrah, a full lunar eclipse that transpires on a Shabbat. So God does his best work on the Shabbat. So are you think that God is setting an example that we shouldn't follow? I think not. I think we should do our best work for Yahowah on the Shabbat. We should celebrate the relationship with Yahowah on the Shabbat. There are no limitations to what we can achieve for the family and for our God and for our King on the Shabbat. It's just a day you don't do your job that you do from Monday through Friday afternoon to make a living for your family. But let's look a bit further into that. Let's say that you're a mother and your child gets sick on the Shabbat. What are you going to do? Say, child, I'm sorry. Go ahead and die. I can't touch you, man. That'd be work. Would you feed an infant on the Shabbat? Wouldn't that be work? Isn't the regular job of a mother? Surely God doesn't want you to let your child die, does he? What if you're a shepherd? Wasn't Dowd a shepherd? Wasn't Moshe a shepherd? What happens when shepherds find out that their sheep are in critical danger on the Shabbat? They've fallen into a crevasse. They're being hunted down by prey. What do? Say, I'm sorry, taking a nap. It's the Shabbat, only a limited number of steps. Can't be bothered with the work of a shepherd on a Shabbat. You're going to have to find another day to get in trouble. You survive, maybe I'll see you on Sunday. Hell no. Okay. The rabbis have gotten it completely wrong. This is a Shabbaton. I'm bringing you this program because what am I doing with this program? I'm celebrating the relationship with Yahowah. I am serving as the Malakah, conveying the message to bring God's people back into fellowship with him. That's how God celebrates the Shabbat. And so should we. The Shabbat observance, a 7-day time to celebrate our relationship with God. And so your soul should reply by answering the summons and making a declaration. Anna, God's given you an invitation. Answer it, for crying out loud. No twirling chickens. No abasing your souls. No grumps. No deprivation. No fasts. This is a homecoming. It's a family reunion. Yahweh's returning with Dowd to the mortal remnant of Yisra'el at the end of the time of troubles, when the whole earth has been transformed to the conditions experienced in Eden, and it is going to be a grand celebration. Act like it. During the 9th of the month, in the evening, from sundown until sunset, you should consistently observe, closely examining and carefully considering your association with the Shabbat, your approach to the promise of the 7th day, and how to observe the Shabbat. You see, with Sukkah, in year 6000 Yah, the first 6 millennia are now gone. Those first 6 millennia from the time that we were booted out of the garden to the time that we return. And that 7th millennia is just beginning. And that's the 1,000 years we spend here on earth with the conditions returned to Eden. It will be glorious. Kara called out Leviticus 23:32. Now, the last time we witnessed a juxtaposition of Shabbaton and Shabbat, both in the same sentence, was during the introduction to Chag Matsah in Kara 23:3. Uh-oh for the Judaisms. Uh-oh for the Christianities. Uh-oh for the Islams. Bye-bye. Yep, the big celebration of the Shabbaton and the Shabbat are associated with Matsah and Kipurym. As Shabbaton is also on Towrah. So, boys and girls, what is it that is never separated in Christianity, never celebrated in Christianity, never celebrated in Judaism, not celebrated in Islam either? Not that they would be aware of what they were doing. Anyway, no one to kill, no Jews to kill, no fun for them. What do Jews fail to do? They turn Passover into a 7-day holiday, don't they? They do exactly the opposite of what God said. God says that Chag Matzah is the 7-day holiday, the 7-day celebration. It's the center of it. And that Passover is just the first day of it. Why? Because all Passover does is add life. The addition of life without matzah is a terrible thing, because you would have to be estranged in Sheol. The rabbis have done the very worst thing they could do to Jews, as have Christians with their man God being killed on Passover and having him taking a nap on matzah, even though they don't mention matzah. So, because you don't celebrate matzah, Passover is counterproductive for both religions. Sorry, but that's the truth. So, the exact same advice was reprised in anticipation of the second and second to last Moed. For matzah, symbolizing the removal of Mitzrayim, and for Kipurym, the ultimate reunion. The two most essential life-sustaining days on Yahweh's calendar are framed by Shabbaton Shabbat, an empowering and enriching expression of everything associated with the promise of 7, a special set-apart day to revel in and reflect upon the meaning of Shabbat, of God's 6 + 1 = 7 plan, celebrating the 7th day with God, knowing that on the 7th day, you're being invited to enjoy camping out with God in conditions akin to Eden for 1,000 years. That means no religion. It means no politics. It means no militarism. That means lots and lots of fun. Following the reminder that our souls are best served by replying to Yahweh's invitation, we are told something that we do not see elsewhere. Recognizing that Yom Kippurim is observed on the 10th day of the 7th month, we are being directed to an especially vigilant 9th day, particularly with regard to our personal interpretation of the Shabbat. It is as if God is telling us that the Shabbaton of Shabbat, of Yom Kippurim, is so essential to our standing with Him that we need to get it right, and that the best way to achieve that result is to be properly prepared. Now, this statement may also be indicting in that the 10th day of the month begins as the sun sets on the 9th day. That's what it could be indicating. It could be suggesting that we must use the day preceding the Mikra to prepare for it, since the party begins as soon as the sun sets. You know, there is an interesting twist that I'll have to explore later, that in the opening line about the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, which is designed to cleanse what we call the adulterous woman of Numbers 5. It begins with a reference to an unclean woman, unclean during her period, and that menstruating woman who is unclean relates to the bride of returning king Dowd in Numbers 5. And I want to explore that because the Yahweh strategy for the menstruating woman is 7 days of separation. And the 7 days of separation are twofold. One is because sex during the menstruating period can be dangerous for the woman. You can have blood flow go the wrong way, and this is a release that should not go the wrong way, and it can be unhealthy for the woman. And God doesn't want a woman abused in this way. He wants the woman's health protected. But also, women have a tendency to be a little less chipper and fun during those 7 days. I don't blame them. It's no fun to go through it. And for the health of the relationship, a little separation during this time probably do you some good. And it's 7 days of separation. So Towrah, there are a grand total of 10 days between Towrah and Kipurym. And so we're being set up to expect that after the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah to purge the adulterous woman, which is religiosity here that we're dealing with, of Numbers 5, that there will be 7 days where she's kind of going to be able to chill and deal with this a bit set apart, kind of coming to grips with all that has happening. And then we're going to have 3 days to get ready for the party, just as the children of Yisra'el were allowed 3 days to prepare for Yahweh. After that period of 7 days, we're going to have 3 periods to get your clothes all cleaned, you get all ready, you get prepared mentally to receive Yahweh, because the last time that happened didn't work out really well. So this time we want it to be exceedingly joyous. And so I think that's the timeline. That's why there's 10 days that separate between all of this. So let's deal with it that way. We're going to be about, I would say 5 to 10 minutes before we're going to light our fire. So we'll go just a bit more, and then I will ask you to go out and pre-light our fire. So I just think that's an interesting insight, and I think that those two things belong together: the 7 days of separation, and then the 3 days of preparation to meet with Yahweh, as Yahweh told Moshe on behalf of the children of Yisrael 3,450 years prior to this date, because, well, it did not go well the last time, and it's going to go much better this time. Also, since this Shabbat observance continues from sunset to sunset, it means that for the purpose of observation, a day begins and concludes at sundown. This further affirms that days of the week do not reset with each new month, because the 7th day of the weekly Shabbat cannot naturally fall on the 9th or the 10th day of the month. If that were the case, then this reaffirms our previous conclusion that a Shabbaton is a time for us to observe that what the Shabbat actually represents, regardless of the day of the week upon which it falls. So the mikra of Matsah, just like the mikra of Kipurym, are Shabbatons. We observe them as days set apart to celebrate our relationship with Yahweh. Particularly then, as we have learned, the mikra of Yom Kippurim foreshadows Yahweh's return with Dowd. It celebrates the reconciliation of Yahweh with Yisra'el and with Yehudim in the waning days of, actually the time of Jacob's troubles will have ended just 10 days prior to this moment. And of course, because we're always asked to walk towards the presence of this fiery light, which we'll light in a moment, Dowd is returning as brilliant as the sun on this occasion. Now, unlike the previous occasions when he extended his son's body and soul to save his people, this time Yahweh and his son are returning as light. Those who have responded to their summons will be protected by the Spirit and saved. Those who come to fight their people in their land will be annihilated. And what follows is a detailed review of that time, the people involved, and the consequence of choice. So maybe it's a good time now. Rich, go ahead and do your survey of the outside. Leia's out there now. Oh, she has already lit the fire. Wow. So we will soon be able to go outside. I'm going to read through this summary, and we're going to walk outside and enjoy this. That way that you can stay inside here with us and continue to bring the outside in as we do this. I think I would take the big picture now to outside and the little picture on the inside. That would be wonderful. Thank you. I'm delighted that we're going to be able to share this occasion with you as we demonstrate the idea of being in the presence of the fiery light of our God. So here's the summation of Yahweh's instructions on Yom Kippurim, the day of reconciliations. Then Yahweh declared the word to Moshe, saying exclusively, during the 10th of the 7th month is the day of reconciliations. This exists as a set apart and special invitation to be called out and meet for reading and reciting, and for you to approach. Then your soul should respond and appear before this feminine manifestation of the fiery light that was just lit by my lovely wife, to approach Yahweh. So do not perform or attempt to profit from any of the service of the Malakah, the spiritual messenger and counselor, during this life-sustaining and essential day. Indeed, the day of reconciliations, and I don't know if you have the text up, but we don't need the text up at this point. Let's just stay exactly as you were, no text at all. And the camera outside, showing the fire. Turn it all the way to the fire, Rich, at this time. So that it is important that you do not perform or attempt to profit from any of the services of the Malakah, the spiritual messenger and maternal counselor, this representation of the 7 spirits of Yahweh during this life-sustaining and essential day. Indeed, the day of reconciliation is to make amends, purging that which is offensive. It is to pardon and to forgive, to reconcile the relationship for you all before the appearance and the very presence of Yahweh your God. Truthfully, any soul which by association does not answer and respond during this life-sustaining and essential, invigorating, and corporeal day, that soul will be cut off and either eliminated or exiled from being with the community and this kinship of living souls. Any soul or individual consciousness capable of being observant and responsive, which by association continually attempts to perform or reassign any part of the work, or to make a profit upon the Malakah, this spiritual counselor, during this life-sustaining and essential day, that specific and individual soul I will eliminate, such that it ceases to exist and is forcibly expelled from being around the family and from their continuing to strive against the community of living souls. Do not consistently or habitually attempt to perform the work pertaining to anything associated with the Malakah. This is an essential and everlasting, clearly communicated and inscribed prescription cut into stone for living throughout all of your generations, in every situation, in all dwelling places. It is for you a Shabbaton, an empowering and enriching expression of everything associated with the promise of 7. A Shabbat observance, a 7th day to celebrate with God. And so your soul, the aspect of yourself that is capable of being observant and responsive, should respond by answering this summons, by making a declaration during the 9th of the month in the evening, from sundown until sunset. You should consistently observe, closely examining and carefully considering your association with the Shabbat. Kara, called out, ridiculously called Leviticus 23, ending with the 32nd statement. Well, we now have a roaring fire, perfect for this expression of the Shabbat. You could pan out a little bit or down so we actually get to see its reflection in the water. It still will be good enough for us to be, oh, that is just perfect. Leave it right. Leave it maybe just up a little bit so that we won't have our heads cut off as we go out there and enjoy it. That looks like that'll be just about perfect. No, that's plenty. It's plenty right there. That's good. So we are now going to walk out. We're going to enjoy this roaring fire. It has been such a delight to spend this Yom Kipurym with you. Every member of the covenant family, celebrate your relationship with our Father Yahweh and with his beloved son, Dowd, both of whom are returning on this day, this exact day, 8 years from now. And let's make the most that we possibly can of this opportunity to encourage Yisraelites and Goyim from around the world to be there with us on this day. Thank you for listening, and may Yahweh bless you all. All right, my friend, I'm going to put on my ear, and we're going to go outside. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear me, and if you're not, that would be fine as well, but we're hoping that you can. Oh, my goodness. You know, it's been so long since I was in a place that I had this opportunity, not only to be around the warmth of a fire. I think that the flames are almost magical. They're alluring, the warmth of this fire, but just even the aroma of the smoke. Fire is such an essential aspect of us understanding what God is offering to us, that I'm hoping that we are able to communicate here, because the reason that Yahweh chose to appear as fire before us, and the reason he asked us to approach this, the fire of Kipurym, is that because what he is offering to us is to transcend our mortal existence, so that we are no longer burdened by these physical bodies, so that we are liberated in space and time, so that we are empowered and enriched such that our soul is embraced inside of spiritual energy and light. You see, just as this fire is converting this organic material, this wood, something that was once alive, into warmth, radiant energy, and light, and how all that rises up towards the heaven.
That's exactly what God is offering us. That's how he explains that he's going to enrich and he's going to empower us and enable us to live life in all of these dimensions and explore the universe and to be timeless and to be so greatly empowered and even enter his home in the seventh dimension, ever more like our Father. It is a marvelous metaphor. I can only imagine how we will have this opportunity to share all eternity with our Father and still have this marvelous cadence of being, thank you, Leah, of being able to celebrate these occasions, because we're still going to gather and still going to celebrate the 7 Moed Mekre through all time. And this will be such a wonderful day of remembering when our Father returned to his people and brought his beloved Son with him. May Yahweh bless you all as we enjoy this marvelous light. Happy Yom Kippurim.